Hi, welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. I am your host, Matt Rossi, and with me this week are two recurring co-hosts who are fantastic, and one amazing guest host. And that'd be we're going to introduce him first. Cory, say hi to everybody, Cory.
Hi, everybody, Cory. Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did.
Boy,
that's the joke. That is how that works. Also, Liz Harper and Joe Perez are here with us. Say hi, guys.
Howdy.
I assure you I'm here.
Neither of them got the joke right.
Yeah. Now, the thing, you can't do it every time. You just ruin it for people. But anyway, lots of stuff to talk about. And since Cory is here to talk about one thing specifically, we're actually going to start with it because that way I don't have to worry that I'll forget to tell him to talk about it. Warcraft Rumble Season 7, it's tomorrow, and it introduces the Cenarian family, is what our post said. I don't know what that means.
Yes, kind of. It's funny you say that.
There's a surprise about that tomorrow thing.
Okay. It's now?
Well, actually, I think by the time that most people hear the podcast, it would have been 2 days ago. But literally 10 minutes ago, as we're recording this podcast, Blizzard released an update saying that while Season 7 is starting on Wednesday, July 10th, the new Cenarian faction features that were supposed to go live with it, a big 3 weeks of Cenarian-specific content that would help you unlock our buddy Cenarius and all the other tree and nature-related friends, is going to start later in the month. It's being delayed by 3 weeks to July 28th instead of the planned launch with everything else.
Okay. That is so surprising.
It is.
We're getting a new season, but all of the content that is part of the new season is delayed until the 28th. Am I understanding this right?
Yes, I've reread their announcement a few times, and we will update the post once we're done recording the podcast here to keep that accurate. But it looks like there must be something that would have, quote, negatively impacted the player experience, which probably means that the Cenarian units, I would guess, that were too powerful or caused massive game-breaking crashes. One of the two. And so because of that, they are choosing to delay them. In the meantime, there are going to be additional rewards, and they're bringing the Darkmoon Fair event back a little earlier than they were planning to. So there is still going to be content and things to play, and you can still help your guild progress towards unlocking things. You just will have to wait a few more weeks for the forces of nature to be under your control.
Okay, but since we know that that's going to come out eventually, could you explain what the Cenarian family thing is?
Yes. So in Warcraft Rumble, you have your different armies or families, depending, whatever name you want to call them. And right now we have an alliance and a horde and some wild beasts, Blackrock forces, and undead. Your basic Warcraft 3 faction. And the alliance has picked up a couple night elves along the way. But for the first time since the game's launch, they're adding a new family to that in the Cenarian forces, which cover the other half of the night elf things that didn't really involve the elves as much. So you have a couple ancients, an ancient of war and an ancient of lore named Onu, who's going to be one of the leaders. And everyone's favorite keeper of the grove, Cenarius, is going to be the other leader for them. And so you'll be able to throw moonkins down on the field and fairy dragons and bog beasts and treants and all the good stuff that you're used to when you think of a leafy kind of enemy. And they all look like they're going to be pretty strong, and they play around a lot of the duality of nature of the healing and hurting, or single target versus AoE targets, things like that. So they should be building out your army pretty nicely for having a few more options to dealing with threats that you might face in Rumble, which we're excited about. Along that, they're also adding in a new zone of 5 different maps for people to tackle in Moonglade, where you'll get to fight fan favorites Brightwing and Cenarius and a few other nature-y themed things. And then the last fight will be you against the dreamer Ysera and her waves of nightmare creatures that she's dreaming up. And so that's just a little extra ways for you to play the game and have some fun and get a few new zones under your belt. But alongside that, they were supposed to release an event called the Cenarian Festival that for 3 weeks you would get fun bonuses and unlock these new units, because this is the first. They're adding 5 new units all at once, basically, which is a big chunk of guys, because for the last few seasons it's just been one guy at a time. And to unlock them all, you would participate in the Cenarian Festival, which gives you the first week, it was going to just throw a couple extra units into your army from the Cenarian family. The second week would give you dual armies. So rather than just your army, you would also have a Cenarian army alongside it. So even more of their units. And the final week, every gold you mined would spawn a treant. So you would just fill the board with trees and go nuts, which would be fun. And will be fun at the end of the month.
Microphone down this time so you can actually hear me. Also should mention really quickly, we didn't mention it. We have mentioned it in the past, so we're just reminding you guys. WoW Classic Season of Discovery Phase 4 is live on the 11th, which is Thursday this week, and as we're recording. And Diablo 3 Season 32 is going live on Friday the 12th. I don't think we knew exactly when it was going live last week, did we?
Yeah, we did. They announced it a week-ish ago.
Okay, I didn't know if I remember that we had known we hadn't known it was ending. I don't think when season 31.
They never announced an end date, but it ended this past weekend. So just it was there and then it wasn't, and now the new season is going to be there, July 12th.
Okay. Okay. Next up, I'm going to mention the Overwatch 2 Summer Games event that's live right now. I don't play Overwatch because I get motion sick. So I don't know if anybody here has playing, is going to play. So if either of you guys, anyone who's played Overwatch, please comment now, or otherwise we'll move.
Oh boy, Overwatch. I feel like I just talked a lot, but here we go again. Yay, Overwatch is what I would have said 5 years ago.
Okay, what are you going to say now? I'm really much more concerned with that.
That's true. The Olympic Summer Games event is here. It's a fun way to sneak Rocket League into Overwatch with your Lucio Ball.
Yeah.
And with no fanfare or anything, they just launched it live today. It goes until the end of the month. And we're going to have some fun playing Lucio Ball.
Also, Winston's Beach Volleyball is available now as well, where everybody plays as Winston, and you go play volleyball with the same ball that you play Lucio Ball with. So there's that. It's fun. They're not exactly, boring modes. They're fun modes. But they're nothing new, really, is kind of the thing. It tends to be, as most other things are with Overwatch, about the skins. So like you have the lifeguard skins for, I want to say it's Mercy. I can never remember the name of the new Foxwing Kiriko, I think. Something like that. And
the new Thai hero, Lifeweaver.
Yeah, Lifeweaver, and then you have Farah and Roadhog as well. So those are there. There's going to be new icons, sprays, stuff like that you can pick up and get. And that's really about it for the summer event. There's a couple new things happening. I want to just segue into this because I think it's, we can do that. There's a new crossover event with Overwatch, which seems to be what Overwatch is now. Instead of having, original ideas, they're just doing crossover ideas, and those crossover ideas are skins. Which
gorgeous
is not
skins.
Gorgeous skins, absolutely gorgeous skins. Like the Cowboy Bebop skins were absolutely amazing, and these ones are also very amazing. And I really wish I was in a point where I didn't want to buy them. I want to buy them. I'm not going to buy them. But they're doing a crossover with Transformers. There are Autobot and Decepticon skins, mostly Autobot skins, one Decepticon skin. So you get Reinhardt as Optimus, which it's a good choice, but I'm really angry that they didn't give him an Energon axe and instead he's still got a hammer. Come on, Blizzard. Like you literally have an axe for Reinhardt that we're going to talk about in a little bit. You couldn't just give him an energy axe and make it accurate. Everything else about the skin is very much gorgeous. Ramatra is Megatron. It's okay. Bastion as Bumblebee is fantastic. And looks amazing. And then Alari, who's another of the newer heroes for Overwatch 2 as RC. That skin looks probably the best out of all of them. And also fits the most with the character. But these are going to be sold in bundles, just like the Cowboy Bebop ones. They're going to be relatively expensive, like the Cowboy Bebop ones, and those will be available. And then talking about axes, because I'm going to complain about this since I'm here, the Mythic shop is revealing its first Mythic weapon skin. It's Reinhardt's Bound Demon weapon skin, which is an axe. You have just proven that you are capable of giving Reinhardt an axe. It looks cool. It's very Diablo-esque with, the Overwatch aesthetics with it. But otherwise, the Mythic shop is stuff that you earn mythic prisms from the premium battle pass and unlock stuff with it. And this is the weapon skin that goes along with that. And then there's also on that same effect or that same track is the Calamity Empress Ashe hero skin, which Ashe has some pretty amazing skins as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Overwatch 2 is mostly just a skin factory at this point.
It's all it exists to do, and I hate that I love them so much because it's that's all there is to it. But I'm just play it anywhere near the same amount.
I'm just thinking about this, calling it a skin factory thing. That sounds like you could do something cool with that if you were, a skin factory. Welcome to the skin. But yeah. Okay, so yeah, I was the crossover event. Thank God Joe introed it so I could eat a couple more french fries. What do we got next?
Wait, I think that it is worth mentioning, though, that to announce the crossover event, they released an absolutely gorgeous animated trailer for it that is
bonkers.
Amazing.
Imagine if they put that kind of effort into some story trailer or something.
The trailer for the Cowboy Bebop event was also super amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all kind of bummed that there is not new Overwatch story. Just this. This.
Yeah, and I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, I don't mind crossovers. Like, crossovers are not a dirty word. Like, I literally, people aren't going to hear it because pre-show technical issues. But like, I like crossovers, like with Magic, the Universes Beyond stuff with like Lord of the Rings and Assassin's Creed and Fallout. Like, I like crossover things in my games that I play, but I also like them to have a little more meat. And
well, I mean, the worst part too is that the first crossover that I remember them doing, I know they did others, but the one I remember seeing first off was the Porsche one, which made literally no sense. Like, now her mech is a Porsche. What?
Yeah, I mean, like, people who play Overwatch, here's a game, here's a crossover with something you're probably never going to be able to afford because it's a luxury item that keeps going up in cost, but we're going to do a crossover with it. I didn't get that either.
At least the Transformers 1A, it's something that I think is a fair amount of actual crossover between these franchises.
I literally have 100 Transformers sitting in front of me, and I am an Overwatch player.
So at least there, it's not. And plus, I mean, a Porsche is not by itself intimidating. Like, I'm not afraid of a Porsche. I'm not like, I don't want it to run me over, but any car, I have that. If you come at me with a Pinto, I don't want to be run over by a Pinto. So yeah, I don't.
You're pretty big, though. I think that you would put up an equal fight against the Pinto.
Quite frankly, I've owned a Pinto in my life, and the little things are extremely fast, and they like to burn up. So I don't want something that might catch on fire if it hits a bump, hitting me as the bump. That's where I am with it. But regardless, I do think we should move on to this next thing because I want to talk about it. Diablo 4 Season 5, they're going to be fixing uniques because right now, currently in Season 4 with Loot Reborn, a lot of people are realizing that unique gear, unless it's uber unique, just isn't worth the try for their
Not
goals.
even uber uniques.
I'm willing to let that one go. I know some people say even uber uniques don't do it, but I've seen some builds that use them. Regardless, uniques just did not keep pace with the upgrade systems that were brought in Season 4. Because when the Loot Reborn went out in Season 4, the various ways you can increase and improve your gear, I think there's reforging, is that what it's called?
Tempering,
and then there's the other one, which is masterworking. So if you can get both of those going really well on a piece of gear, it just absolutely dominates. It doesn't matter like how good the unique is because it can't ramp up that way. It currently does not have the ability to do that.
Tempering in particular adds, new stats, and you can add two, I don't know if they call them affixes, but two tempering affixes to each of your pieces of gear that add new powers. They can roll in kind of a zone, so you can get very powerful tempering affixes. I know it's not optimal, but I usually go for straight up plus damage tempering. And if you have a good roll on a plus damage tempering, it's hard to get anything that's going to top that.
Yeah, you'll hold on to that thing for a very long time.
Forever. And uniques just don't have that power. You can't temper them. You can't masterwork them. So they have a real power cap.
Well, you can masterwork.
As
You
good
can
as the piece
masterwork the
is.
uniques though.
Oh, okay,
You just
but
can't.
you can't add the new additional affixes with tempering.
You
Yeah, and
cannot,
that's-
which is the big draw.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
reason that uniques just don't measure up. And so in season 5, Blizzard has said, we're going to try and make this better. We're going to try and make uniques more worth getting, which is great. Except that the way they're doing it is basically just to make the uniques better. And I don't know that this is one of those situations where they're going to have to do that thing that Blizzard is not always great at doing, and dial in the amount of better that will make them competitive with the system that they're trying to compete with, rather than just letting people use the system. I don't get why they're not just letting people temper.
I don't hate it though, because
No, I don't hate it either, but I don't understand it.
Having spent a lot of time playing this most recent season of Diablo, to the point that I have almost 2 max level characters. I have one fully maxed, I know there's in the 90s somewhere. But having played with it, I know how painfully annoying it can be to get the exact right tempered affixes for your maximum possible damage build on your gear. Because there's 3 or 4 choices that every time I temper, I'll get one of those 3 or 4 choices. And I could be after just one of them, and maybe 2 of them are something that is kind of viable for the build I'm going for, but the other 2 might not contribute anything at all. And if at the end of my limited number of temper tries, I don't have one of those 2 kind of good affixes, that is now a dead piece of gear that is no longer an upgrade for me, if it was before, that I just have to trash and hope that in the next X time that I play, I find another piece of gear that has the base stats that I'm looking for.
Doesn't really change the fact that they're going to have to dial in pretty effectively on what makes a unique or an uber unique. You're going to have to make it strong enough to actually stand up against a fully tempered, fully masterwork piece. Which, I mean, that's why PTRs exist.
Well, about the PTR, they tested new uniques on the PTR, but they didn't. They're going to upgrade all existing uniques to kind of meet this new power level of tempered items. They're all going to have some tempering, they're buffed across the board, but they're also going to have a fixed tempering affix on them. So they'll have some of the power of tempering without the randomness. But the problem is they didn't test these on the PTR. The upgraded uniques were not on the PTR. So when you're talking about tuning in, on the right power level here, they tested new uniques. They didn't test existing uniques. So I think we may see a few balance patches after this.
Oh yeah, almost always.
After this goes out to dial in on this, because one of the problems I think Diablo 4 has is insufficient testing. There's a ton of game there, and this is only the second PTR they've done. Their PTRs are very short. They only last a week. They're only for PC BattleNet players, and it just doesn't seem like enough. A lot of the time, they don't have all the content available. This time, they were testing the Infernal Hordes event, but they require rare drops to get, which you could not easily acquire, so that didn't get tested as much as it could have. And it just seems like we're not taking testing very seriously here.
It feels like they're using testing almost like I want to say like a shotgun. Where they just sort of like throw a bunch of players at the thing and see what happens. Like, how can enough people get the rare drops necessary to start the Infernal Hordes event or not? And I get why you might want to do that, because you might want to know, okay, wait a minute, are we dropping enough of these things? But I feel like when you're trying to test it on the PTR, you should possibly have a means by which, at least by the end of the PTR, you better spawn somebody who can just trigger it for you. Exactly. So they can test it. I mean, you can't really test it if you just don't get the drop. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of things about that. But I am still kind of hopeful on this whole idea of buffing uniques and uber uniques.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. I just, I feel like we always have to be careful, because we never know how the balancing will go. Like, it's possible that sometimes people they won't buff it enough, and that's possible, but they also might buff it way too much.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what it's like when you get that one drop that's just like unbelievably good, and then suddenly it isn't, because they're going to have to nerf it because it's just crazy. I hate that feeling. I absolutely hate that feeling when a piece of gear goes from absolute ultimate SSS tier to it's still really good. Yeah, it's blow these up.
I think that's where the Diablo seasonal cadence comes into a good play, because you'll have to make a new character the next season anyways, assuming that's the primary way you play the game, and then they have the time in between seasons to dial back that unique without ruining the gameplay flow too much. And since it is mainly a PvE game, and they've addressed that PvP will never be balanced because it's impossible.
Yeah, they're not trying.
Yeah, they're not trying. So hopefully that lets people stay at that overpowered level a lot longer. Or at the very least, it won't completely derail your build because a new season starts and you start a new character to play the new stuff.
Yep, that's fair, and I hope they don't do that. This next bit, however, I wanted to do because I don't understand what's happening, but Liz is here, and maybe Cory too, because I think Cory plays Hearthstone as well. So Joe and I can basically just, get something to drink and maybe, play with some shadow puppets. Anyway, there's a whelp. It's being banned in Hearthstone. I don't understand why. Liz, why are they banning this cute little green whelp?
Yes, it is an adorable green whelp. The Splish Splash Whelp, a druid card that has been suddenly banned. I think this is a very strange move for Blizzard to take. We're just a couple of weeks from the next Hearthstone expansion, and it feels like you could have, if this is a problem right now, maybe you could have noticed it earlier, and if this is a problem because of the expansion, maybe you could have fixed it with the expansion launch. But instead, they just, they nerfed, they banned temporarily the Splish Splash Whelp, which is a druid card. It is a dragon with a battle cry that says, if you are holding a dragon, gain an empty mana crystal. So this is a pretty kind of standard type of druid card that lets them ramp up more quickly than other classes and build up their mana. So why did they suddenly nerf it? Well, we think it might be because of an interaction between it and Doomkin, which is a druid warlock card that costs 6 mana and has a battle cry that says, take one of your opponent's empty mana crystals. So when you combine these two cards, I mean, you're getting, if you kind of pull off that early ramping effect, and then also you throw down your Doomkin and it destroys your opponent's mana, then you could get just too much. You could become overwhelming your opponent too fast. You're building your mana up while tearing their mana down. I still think it's an odd nerf. It's an odd time to do the nerf. Blizzard said they made this ban because of overwhelming druid presence, which also seems like a weird reason to nerf a card. They have not done a ban like this. Yeah, I mean, they've banned cards before. They've moved cards out of standard. They have a regular rotation that moves things out of standard. But it's very strange for them to suddenly ban one specific card. And it sounds, well, the only reason they've given is because overwhelming druid presence. So lots of people are enjoying playing a druid, so we've got to get rid of this card combo. And I mean, that is fair, because when one class and one deck starts dominating the Hearthstone meta, that gets really tiresome to play. If you log in, load up the game, open up a game of standard, and it's like, oh god, another druid.
Especially if there isn't an easy counter to that. Like if you knew that you were going to run into 99% druids and you could run a deck that said, my only job in life is to stop a druid deck, and you would win, that would be fine. And
then the meta would slowly swing to something else, But it just seems odd that they've done this so suddenly, and it's 2 weeks before an expansion they're doing this. It's possible that they think Splish Splash Whelp will interact and become even more powerful with some cards in the expansion, and that might be the reason for banning it, or at least part of the reason. But for now, it's just that Splish Splash Whelp is banned. Your ramp druids have lost a little bit of power. The expansion is coming out on the 23rd, so that will provide a pile of new cards, and Splish Splash Whelp may be back in some form after the expansion release. But for now, it's gone. Gone.
The picture, however, the cute little whelp in a bathtub, and my lord, I just want to squeeze that thing.
It is so adorable. You kind of want to give him a hug. But
it is having the time of its life. You need to see it to believe it.
But now that we've done that, I guess I should at this point move on to something that's not quite as cute. It's not horrible or anything, but basically they're changing the way they're doing case rewards in the War Within, and it's actually a change that I saw mentioned by a couple other people, and I thought it annoyed me because this is a change that is likely to appeal to me. and I don't want them to appeal to me. I'm sorry. I don't want to play WoW like I have in the past. I don't want to spend like literally 3 months at the launch of the expansion just playing WoW and getting crazier and crazier. But this is like really appealing in that you can basically earn caches. I think the first 2 you can get in a week. You can earn them from any source.
So, like right now, you go into the game and there's going to be a weekly quest, and you might get a cache from it that has gear rewards or other things. You might have a quest like in Emerald Dream right now. You can go and get the quest to collect 3 dream seeds or complete a super bloom, and you like if you want a cache with gear in it, if you want to collect this stuff, you have to do these specific events. And now it's going to be pick your event. And the first 2 rewards you get are going to be those same good rewards you would get from previously doing like a weekly event, a specific weekly event.
More.
And now you'll have choices, which we love choices.
Yeah, you'll have choices, but also you can get 2 pieces because it's the first 2 caches you earn from any source. For each week, you get 2. I mean, so that's really amazing. That's something I saw that and I'm like, oh, this is a good change, and I'm gonna want to use it. I'm never going to get to play anything else. I'm going to have fun. Oh, this is awful.
I mean, there are problems. Also, there is one more thing. So the first 2 will give you gear, but the first 4 will also give you a currency that you can use in delves to unlock chests, I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah, it's coffer keys.
Yeah, so you'll get
100 coffer key fragments. Which then can make coffers out of, that's how that works.
Has anyone tried giving these keys some Buckleys or maybe a Halls?
I can't believe you referenced Buckley's.
Is Buckley's too Canadian? I never can
Buckley's
remember.
is way too Canadian, man. For our non-Canadian listeners, Buckley's is cough syrup that has like roofing tar in it, and I'm not kidding. One of the active ingredients is an active ingredient that you find in roofing tar. It is like it blows your whole respiratory system gets flushed out by this stuff. It's astonishing. It's awful beyond measure, but it does work. That's
their slogan. That's it. So I guess I should have said Robitussin or Halls.
Yeah, those are ones that people outside of Canada would know. Buckley's is uniquely Canadian because it is seriously it's like pine tree sap. It's just awful. Anyway, but yeah, the coffer keys, you get 100 fragments for every 4. The first 4 caches you get every week. They give you, and from any source, so same list as above, which is like all the different stuff. You get 100 coffer key fragments, and that means you can get up to 400 in a week, and you can combine them to make coffer keys. I think it's 100 per key, so you can get 4 keys just doing your weekly caches, which is pretty amazing. We don't really know how the bountiful delves. We don't know how good the gear will be rewarding wise because we haven't really seen it too much. But still, this is like their shift to making soloable content that actually can reward you somewhat reasonable gear is pretty on display in the War Within. They're going for it.
And it's not just somewhat reasonable gear. The gear you can get in delves, which are soloable content or small group content, depending on what you feel like, you can get up to, I believe it's heroic level raid gear, kind of the same eye level as that. So you're getting great gear by doing, challenging solo or small group content. And, different things for different people. Some people are going to really enjoy that. Some people are still going to enjoy raids better. But we have options. I love options.
Yeah, the veteran gear is also something that it's much easier to get now. So it's really something. I think it is. Again, it made me a little unhappy that I will be happy with this change because I'm like, the Diablo expansion's coming out like the month after. You know what I mean?
We're overloaded with games.
How am I going to play the Diablo expansion and this at the same time? It just does not seem reasonable. So yeah, I don't know, but it is a nice change. I think it's pretty good. Is there anything next?
I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard tries to sell us a DLC that is just 3 more hours in the day, so you can play more games.
I mean, if they did, I would line up
in a heartbeat.
Right. This one I'm gonna throw at Joe here because Joe, you've been the one talking mostly about Mythic Plus when we've been talking about it. And so they're now having new Xalatath-themed Mythic Plus affixes, which have been revealed for the War Within. Have you had a chance to look at that yet?
I did. I'm sure Cory can talk about it too with us.
Yes,
so we talked a little bit about Xalatath's bargain. We were talking about, before we mentioned it, we didn't really have a clear like example of what that bargain would be. Like they gave us a few like generic things like keep the mobs out of this and then you get the benefit if you can do it. Otherwise the mobs get a benefit and that makes things harder. So now we get a little more detail with Xalatath's bargain Ascendant. While in combat, Xalatath rains down orbs of cosmic energy that attempt to empower nearby enemies, increasing their haste and movement speed. If the player disrupt these orbs, they get the effect themselves. Xalatath's bargain Frenzied. Non-boss enemies become frenzied at 30% health remaining, increasing their haste by 40%, but increasing their damage taken by 20%. And then starting at Keystone level +7, a new affix, Challenger's Peril, directly affects the dungeon timer. The affix emphasizes precise play and strategic execution. Basically, dying subtracts 15 seconds instead of 5 seconds. We've talked about that before. At +12, a new Xalatath bargain affixes happen, which is Xalatath revokes her bargains and just straight up empowers the creatures with a 20% increase in health and damage. So basically, it's she betrays you and blah, blah, blah. We have talked about those before. So I don't really think I'm missing anything, or there's really nothing much new except for Fortified and Tyrannical. And I think we talked about this when you weren't here, but they will still rotate in lower keys, starting at +4, but at 10 or higher, both will always be active. So that means that +12 or higher will always be the same with no variation week by week, or at least as it stands right now. So that is a wild change, and I think players are going to feel pretty divisive about that. I personally don't know how I feel about that. On one hand, it's nice to not have to chase the ethics for your ranking or for your level up, but on the other hand, it might be too much to deal with. But I don't know, because I haven't been able to run any mythics or test any of that stuff yet, so I don't know how balanced they are. We're going to find out, though.
And you're also going to have Fortified and Tyrannical and Xalatath's Guile all at once. So that sounds like a big difficulty jump when you get up to that 12 and you get Xalatath's Guile, and that buffs everything by another 20%.
I don't know if it's that much of a big jump compared to what plus 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 keys were doing prior to the mythic key level change. So I don't know. Cory, what do you think?
I think that 90% of, well, maybe that's a bit high, but I think that a lot of players will never ever see Xalatath's Guile. If they keep the rewards the same way as they do now, which they haven't said they're not, that you won't need to go past a 10 unless you're someone who enjoys Keystone pushing as an endgame content. Because right now you get your, if you completed Mythic Plus on time at level 10, with the new system of rankings, that's when you get your Challenger's Path portal that lets you teleport directly to the dungeon. So the only reason to go to a 12 or higher would be your own bragging rights, which is fine. The players there say they want a challenge, and the easiest way to give them a challenge is just throw more numbers at it, because shockingly, none of them seem to really enjoy the affixes at all.
And, one thing I think we kind of skipped past or maybe mentioned in the past is that all of the other affixes are gone. Sanguine, bolstering, raging, bursting, reckless, focused, all of those things gone. So there's just these affixes, just this small pool that you will know about in advance. But one thing Blizzard did say when they were writing this was to suggest there may be more Xalatath's bargains that we could get, because in their post about it, they said for our first test, we will have 2 Xalatath's bargain affixes, which sounds like there may be more in the wings. So you may have more variety happening on those lower levels, and we just don't know yet.
And all of my friends who've run Keystones celebrated when they said Sanguine is going away and Bolstering is going away, but at the same time, they announced these new Xalatath affixes. And I said, well, what's going to happen is that 1 week they will have probably Xalatath's affix, Sanguine, and it'll be something silly like, if you stand in the Sanguine puddle, you will take damage, but all of your abilities will crit or something. So now we're going to have... It'll be something like that. I could see that being the standard Blizzard bless/curse mechanic that they like to give, where if you put yourself in danger, you can do more damage, but oh boy, will your healer be upset. So I would not be surprised to see a return of Sanguine. But I like that they're bringing flavor back into the Mythic Pluses.
Or at least they're trying to.
Yeah. And it's likely that we will see Xalatath as a figure in the game for at least 2 expansions.
Yeah, I mean, possible. We don't really know what Xalatath will be in this expansion. We know that their presence behind things, but we don't know if they'll be an in-game boss or not. But since we're talking about that, we should mention one thing that we should probably talk about is the fact that Dragonflight Season 4, which is the current season you're playing right now, it's going to be ending, and I'm putting the finger quotes up, soon. We don't know when, because they did not give us an actual when it's going to end. They just gave us a nice post warning us that it's going to end soon. Since we're all speculating that the pre-patch for War Within is in late July, I believe, didn't we say like July 23rd or something?
July 23rd, and I'm feeling pretty good about that prediction, because that's shortly before they remove the guild transfer services, which will be kind of irrelevant with the new warband system.
Like, if you look at it right now, as we're recording this, it's the 9th, which means that next week will be the 16th, and then after that, it'll be the 23rd, I believe. So that's 2 Tuesdays from now, and that lines up with our belief it's going to be on the 23rd. So, yeah, we still don't know. They have not announced, but it does seem really quite reasonable that this is going to happen. What do you guys think?
Makes sense to me. I like that they're saying that the Mythic Plus rewards will continue on for a little while after the season ends. It sounds like that's your Mount and Keystone portals. So you still have time to get those. But they also don't specify what exactly. They say most Mythic Plus achievements and rewards will remain earnable, but they don't specify what those are. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
I do not disagree with you, Cory. Joe, Liz, do you have anything to say, or are you okay with moving on?
Move on.
Okay. You want a nice owl? Perhaps a superb owl, if you're into that kind of thing? Well, get yourself a WoW 6-month sub, because that's how you can get yourself a big blue owl who is quite pretty. It's a pretty owl. I think anybody would say so.
It is the charming courier mount, and it will be free for subscribers, 6 or 12-month recurring subscribers. Or you can buy it in the store for 25 real American dollars, which seems, it's less appealing as a $25 mount. But as a mount you get for subscribing to the game, I like it. I like it a lot. It's an owl. It seems like it kind of has dragon horns.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it. No, those are definitely dragon horns. Yeah, that's like the dragon he had.
And it's got scales on its wings a little bit too. Yeah.
It's some kind of weird dragon owl.
See, to me, this just proves my theory.
I'm into it.
My theory in World of Warcraft is, like in other games, dragons can just mate with everything. They can just have baby everything. Doesn't matter. Just boom. Okay. Because we know they take their visage forms and change into different things. So, yeah, sure.
I love how Matt goes to that. I'm just like, yeah, it's just an owl chilling out near the halls of infusion. Like, it's just a thing that happened.
Yeah, I just remember back when I played 3rd edition D&D and they had the half dragon and everything became a half dragon. And then they were like, we gotta change this to the dragonborn, because right now, literally, we have everything as a half dragon. We have dwarf half dragons, goblin half dragons, half dragon, but it's a different dragon. And I'm like, isn't that just a dragon then? No, it's a different dragon because it's half and half. Like, okay, whatever, guys. So yeah, I do like the mount. It's really pretty. I don't particularly. I'm a little annoyed that basically I was given a whole bunch of WoW time by friends, so I haven't had to resub in quite some time. Which ooh, boohoo, woe is me. But it does mean every time they do one of these things, I don't get it. So it's like another thing I'm not gonna get. Great, thanks, guys. But regardless, very pretty mount. I don't know why it seems being flown over the Firelands. No, not the Firelands. But I think that's the Firelands behind it. I can't tell if it's Hyjal or what. I don't know where this is.
And the promo photo?
I think that's Winter Spring.
Oh, could be.
I think it's Valdrakken. I think it's just
that's Valdrakken in the background. That's in the Azure Span.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
For all of you people out there who do not have a visual of this, the screenshot Blizzard provided of this mount is it flying over a blurry background, which we are all arguing about now.
Having a difficult
time. It's 100% the Azure Span. I will bet money on that.
Now, here's my thought. My first thought that when I saw this mount, I said, "Oh, that's a pretty mount. Oh, wait, that's an owl." And as somebody who plays a druid 95% of the time in World of Warcraft, my immediate thought was, "Is this going to be a travel form for me?" And as of right now, no, it is currently not a travel form. Unlike the mythic Farak mount, the fire owl, which does give druids a travel form, which is very nice. So I'm just hoping that anyone at Blizzard listening who could make this decision, please allow druids to shapeshift into this superb owl.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Please and thank you.
I will say one thing. It is also going to be a skywriting mount, so you can do all of your cool dragon writing stuff on this owl, dragon, whatever. So that's, yeah, I like it when you get a mount that you can actually use. You know, a lot of mount rewards or mount sales, they give you this cool mount, and it's like, it's a ground mount, and it's like, okay, this is really cool. And also, I'm never going to use this because flying is about 1,000,000 times faster than walking on the ground.
Yeah, and plus
really
you can
sad.
fly over. You can fly over things, which is also nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But all right, I think that pretty much covers it for stories for this week. So now's where we segue into that whole deal where you guys send us questions and we try to answer them, and often we don't really succeed, but we give it a shot. If you've got a question for this podcast, you can send it to our email address, which is podcast@blizzardwatch.com with the subject line podcast or Blizzard Watch, so we know it's for this show. I try not to steal questions from Joe, but sometimes I do because I'm a fragile, fallible human being, and at times I make the wrong decisions. And then sometimes I let Joe have questions, and that's the wrong decision, by the way. Also, you can go to our Discord server. We have 2 channels on our Discord server. One is simply called Pew and Podcast Questions, and that's for everybody. Anybody can go in there and ask us questions, and we will look there and go, "Ooh, a question." But if for some reason I want to guarantee we'll look there first, then you can go to the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel, where our patrons can go. And since y'all pay for us to do this show and have this website and so forth, we like to try and give you a little something in return, which is the ability to be more certain that you will get your questions. So yeah, here we are. We're going to do some. I'm going to go with the one that I actually got asked and I was going to use for the queue today, but then the queue rejected my ability to answer it. And I tried multiple different ways, and it was like, nope, too long. And I knew it would be, but regardless.
The queue is haunted. We all know it. The queue is haunted.
But here we go. This one is from our friend Korn. Hey, y'all. I had a dream that Joe and Liz built an enormous tower of skulls, and Rossi did the opening intro to The Crazy World of Arthur Brown's Fire, and then you all talked about your personal picks for the best isometric style CRPGs. And ever since then, I've wanted a pizza. But since I don't expect you guys to give me a pizza, how's about those CRPGs? Which ones are the best ones? Argue about it if you like. I'll just sit here on this tower of skulls. Korn, thank you.
Blood for the Blood God?
Skulls for the Skull Throne, yeah. Joe?
I mean, for those that at home that may not know what a CRPG is, it's a computer role-playing game. Typically, usually involves something with a fantasy environment, but this includes games like Baldur's Gate. Technically, Fallout 2 falls into that. Fallout 1, Wasteland. It doesn't necessarily have to be isometric, but they almost always are.
Shadowrun Trilogy, Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2 technically operates in that space as well. There's a lot of them to sort of, not put too fine a point on it. As far as what my favorites are, I mean, I don't know that I can really pick one. I really do like the original Icewind Dale. That is a game that nobody really talks about. It's up there for me. Neverwinter Nights was always a great game. Disco Elysium was a really good game of recent years that I think is something people should play. There's some trigger warnings, which I highly recommend reading their game page. But honestly, the one that I think is probably the weirdest and holds a special place in my heart over the years is Planescape Torment. It came out in 1999. Was done by Black Isle, which did a whole bunch of other stuff that you might be familiar with. And it's kind of cool because it was the Planescape multiverse of Dungeons and Dragons actually given a physical form. And it was really one of the first times that had been done in a video game trying to adapt the wild nature of Planescape, because
it was wild, and sort of blending the elements of that fantasy with sci-fi-ish elements, like a layer of it. So I thought that was really neat at the time, and I remember as a kid just being completely blown away by that. You can still play it today. Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition is still out there. I think various purveyors of digital content have it available. So yeah, that would be my pick for. I don't know if I would say it's the best, but it's definitely up there.
Okay, Liz or Cory, either of you want to chime in here?
I don't play a lot
is-
of CRPGs, but I haven't really played a lot of the ones that Joe just mentioned. It's not really my go-to for gaming. I will mention, as from the isometric angle, which is a great joke I just thought of.
Yeah. No, I see you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I would just like to shout out our good friend, not literally, but I would love that. Supergiant Games and all of their content, every game that they have made has been an amazing isometric game. Hades, Transistor, Pyre, Bastion. Please give me more of them, and I will play them forever.
I'll tell you right now, Pyre is one of the strangest games I've ever played.
Pyre is amazing.
So strange.
It's a sports game. Although I don't think
it's
those technically
very much a sports game. It's basically basketball, kind of, if you die.
and I think those definitely are not CRPGs, but they're definitely isometric adventures.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little role playing in Pyre, but it is still a really weird, fun game. So,
and it tells such a beautiful story.
Liz, you were talking. Do you have anything?
I mean, the problem I have with this is that, I don't think about, I'm playing an isometric game. I go into games for stories, and that means I might play games from very different genres and just for the story. I mean, if you say Dragon Age falls into this category, then yes, for sure, Dragon Age games. But I don't play them because they're a certain type of game. I play them because they have great stories. So this is an interesting question that I absolutely do not have a good answer for.
Okay. For myself, Joe and I have complementary but not identical tastes. I don't know anybody who played Planescape back in the day who didn't love it, because in order to play it at all, you had to love it. It was a game that it's definitely one of those games where it's like either you bounce off this thing so hard, or you go flying straight into it and just dance around with glee at how crazy it was. I was definitely in the dance around with glee camp. I definitely put it. If I were doing a top 10 list, I think Planescape would be like my number 3. And obviously games like Planescape and Baldur's Gate 2 were like the ones that got me into this kind of game. Although I did also play some that were even older. Like I played some of the Gold Box games, which aren't even isometric. They're just like old Ultima. They have like a window on the screen where characters can move around a little bit. It was almost like a 2-bit game. But yeah, so I played a lot of them. I think I've talked a lot about ones I think are really great. Like from the past, just in the past few years, I've talked about both Baldur's Gate 3 and Wrath of the Righteous as being top tier CRPGs. And I'm a big fan of like what Obsidian did otherwise, like the Pillars of Eternity games. I liked both of them quite a lot. But for me, I think the best game that Obsidian has ever done, and then when I say this, I mean literally the best game Obsidian has ever done, and if you're going to list a different game from Obsidian, I'm going to say this game is better, is Tyranny. And I always bring Tyranny back up because it did not make much of an impression on a lot of people at the time it came out. I think it's become more of an underground hit since, but it's still very much a niche CRPG. And I liked it for one thing because its start point is the world has essentially been conquered by an evil overlord, and you work for him. You're one of his minions. And through this game, you can choose to basically start a rebellion against him, or you can stay loyal to him. And you can pretty much play this game however you want, with any approach you want to take, which is something Obsidian, gets honestly enough, because it's essentially just Black Isle and Interplay old heads, like, Fergus Earthquat and all those guys. Guys who came up with the original Fallout, guys who did the first Icewind Dale and the sequel. And by the way, Joe, Icewind Dale, kudos, because David Ogden Stiers does an absolutely wonderful performance as the main villain, and I've never forgotten his voice at the very end.
It's really hard to forget about it. Yeah. So, but Tyranny, I think, is by far Obsidian's best game.
It's better than the Outer Worlds. It's better than Fallout New Vegas. It's better than Alpha Protocol, if that's the one you were going to list, and why. But regardless, I don't say it's better because it executes anything better or its story is better. I say it's better just because it feels like them taking all your assumptions about what an Obsidian game is going to be and exactly subverting them. And that to me is precious. It's like a little diamond in the rough. The only other game that I would put even close to it is Arcanum of Steamworks and Obscura and Clockwork Obscura. And the reason that I love that game, and that game's a Troika game. Troika are basically three of the people who now work at Obsidian. Troika they made a lot of good games, but then they always there was always some kind of bug. Like I believe wasn't Troika the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines guys? Yep. And that's an absolute classic that everybody loves now, but it was a buggy, janky, unplayable mess when it came out, as was Arcanum, as was Temple of Elemental Evil, which was the other CRPG they made that I would put up near in the top of any list I made, except it was, again, unplayable on release. Troika had a lot of great ideas, and they kept getting ahead of themselves with them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of sad to look at how both Troika and Obsidian after them, basically, Troika died, and Obsidian almost died, again, because they kept having too many ideas that they couldn't quite execute.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for me, I think, Tyranny, best CRPG I've ever played. Definitely the best isometric one. If we're counting stuff like Greedfall or, because the problem with CRPG is it means computer role-playing game, but it also sometimes means classic role-playing game, and it's one of those terms that's not really well defined. Under the rubric of computer role-playing game, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those. If you throw an isometric in there, isometric really just says, okay, it's top-down. What makes an action RPG that uses that formula not a CRPG? Just that it's an action CRPG? It's still got role-playing elements. It's like, is Diablo not? Because I used to play like both Diablo and Baldur's Gate at the same time. Like not literally the same time. I didn't have one going and then the other one going on another screen. But I would play them both, in the same rotation. Because to me, they were kind of like the founding fathers of this whole concept. And I'm sorry, Diablo's isometric. Diablo is defiantly isometric. It's isometric to this day. Diablo 4, isometric. It doesn't even have the rotation thing that other games do. A lot of, like, Baldur's Gate 3 and Wrath of the Righteous both let you rotate the screen around. Diablo 4 won't let you do that. It's insistent that you will just go on this map, and this map will not be changed. So, I don't know. It is hard for me to define that. But I think that's that. How much time we got left? Can we do one more?
We have enough time for me to bring up something that just got posted from Blizzard.
Okay, go for it.
So, the War Within is bringing us a new set of Mythic Plus affixes, as we were just talking about minutes ago. And literally minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, Blizzard posted an update to those affixes. Currently, they've introduced a new one called Voidbound, that while in combat, Xalatath will summon a Void Emissary to empower nearby enemies, gradually increasing their damage. Upon defeating the Void Emissary, players harness the energy for themselves, increasing their critical chance by 20% for 20 seconds. So you'll have a nice kill this thing quick kind of target, and then you will get a benefit. And we all love benefits.
That is another.
How did they?
That's that's another Xalatath's bargain.
It is.
So that's presumably rotating with the other one.
Joe, they definitely have that chip going again. All right. But yeah, I guess that's it. Oh no, there's more.
There's more. There's just slightly more. They've nerfed the Xalatath's Bargain Ascendant to reduce visual clutter. Apparently, it was spawning a lot of orbs, 20 different orbs that you would have to interrupt or disrupt to get the power, and they've halved that down to 10. So that should help keep things visually clear. And they are removing the frenzied affix that, at least from beta testing, we'll see what its final resting state is, but they say that it is less thematic compared to the orb pitching, and it is too passive and has no counterplay, so they are currently removing it from testing. And that their goal is to create varied challenges that highlight different class skills and utilities in a way that do not feel exclusionary, and they're looking forward to our feedback on them. And so far, these all sound great, and I hope that they keep working on them because we love projects.
Okay. Well, thank you, for noticing that, Cory. I'm thank you to Blizzard for waiting till we were literally almost done with the podcast, but at least you did it so we could throw it in at the end, as opposed to usually you do it like a minute after. I'm going to now look at Joe and give him the eyes.
Certainly, Blizzard Watch is made possible due to generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, a better chance at having your question answered on our podcast with a queue, and an ads-free site experience.
Thank you very much, Joe. A special thank you to Cory for coming on and basically talking about all the games that none of us played, so he helped out quite a bit there. Thank you, Cory.
You're very welcome. I'm always happy to come and say hi. It is a fun time, and I'm happy to do so.
Cool. And I'm happy to drink more drink, because that means I can. Thank you again also to Joe and Liz for being here like they are every week, the stalwarts who have been on this show every time we've done it since they both came on. I have actually missed more shows than either of them. So yeah, this has been the Blizzard Watch podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. And we'll be back next week.